Okay, so good afternoon, my dear students. Welcome to our virtual class for this afternoon. Before I proceed, let me introduce myself to you. I am Maria Ana C. Robles, your Online Learning Coordinator or your OLC. I am one of the faculty members of College of Arts and Sciences at AMA Malolo City, Bulacan. Okay, so for our course code, we have here UGRDN 102, Section 1, 421-130, and this is Communication Skills 2. And our topic for this afternoon is the part 1 of listening. Okay, so for our learning objectives, we have here at the end of the discussion, we will be able to define listening and then differentiate listening from hearing and explain the active listening process and give purposes of listening. Okay, so these are our learning objectives for this afternoon. And let me give you an introduction first. Now, listening is a skill usually taken for granted, especially since we normally consider ourselves to be a good listeners already. So just like eloquence, listening is an important factor in achieving effective communication. Thus, it is crucial to develop these skills. Now, listening will help us stay focused on the message being shared, aid in our comprehension of the meaning being conveyed, and may even enable us to maintain or improve our relationships with other people. So improving this ability will also allow us to understand others better and will help us learn new ideas and concepts more efficiently. It seems that nowadays, people find it difficult to listen. So with the advancement of technology, the fast-paced culture it dictates, and the distractions it poses, the need to listen has taken a backseat. Now, most of us had experiences of not being listened to, or the guilty of not listening to someone. So during such times, we experience negative emotions such as rejection and embarrassment, which may affect the communication experience and ultimately our relationships. So this is why listening needs to be given the attention it deserves. Now, what is listening? Okay. Now, nature has given us one tongue, but two ears, so that we may hear from others twice as much as we speak. And according to Mark Twain, listening is the ability to understand and respond effectively to oral communication. So if we were supposed to talk more than we listen, we would have two mouths and one ear rather. Okay. Now, listening is the ability to accurately receive and interpret messages in the communication process. So listening is key to all effective communication. Because without the ability to listen effectively, messages are easily misunderstood. As a result, communication breaks down and the sender of the message can easily become frustrated or irritated. So if there is one communication skill you should aim to master, then it is listening. Now, listening is the most important communication skill. We probably spend more time using our listening skills than any other kind of skill. Like other skills, listening takes practice. So, because the real listening is an active process in itself and it requires attention. Now, the first and the foremost communication skill that we learn in our lives is nothing but listening. Then, because when we were born, the first communication skill that we have as a baby is listening, and then speaking slowly. We can speak. Then eventually we can read and write. Okay. Now, what are listening skills? So listening skills are the ways to help you listen something more effectively. Now, what is the difference between hearing and listening, or hearing versus listening? Now, hearing and listening are frequently thought to be synonymous or the same to each other, but in truth, they are two different things. Listening is not the same as hearing. Now, let's try to find out. Now, hearing is a natural process, psychological process of receiving oral and visual stimuli. So it refers to the sound that enters our ears. Of course, we have two ears, and therefore everything that uh, everything that we hear enters into our ears. So it refers to the sound, or it refers to the sounds that enter our ears. So it is a physical process, provided that if you do not have anything, or if you do not have any hearing problems, it happens automatically. Hearing happens automatically when you do not have any hearing problems. So listening is more than hearing. So it is a skill that needs to be developed. So another one is that hearing is the passive phase of speech reception, while listening is the active phase of speech reception. Good hearing is needed for effective listening. Listening is a sub-process of communication that involves not only hearing. And good hearing is not synonymous to good listening, because listening constitutes understanding and remembering. And because of that, listening requires more than that. It requires focus and well-concentrated effort, both mental and sometimes physical as well. Because listening means paying attention not only to the story, but how it is told. So the use of language and voice, and how the other person uses his or her body. So in other words, it means being aware of both verbal and nonverbal messages. Now, your ability to listen effectively depends on the degree to which you perceive and understand these messages. Now, a good listener will listen not only to what is being said, but also to what is left unsaid or only partially said. Effective listening, therefore, involves observing body language and noticing inconsistencies between verbal and nonverbal messages, as well as just what is being said at any given moment. So, for example, if someone tells you that he is happy with his life, but through gritted teeth or with tears filling his eyes, you should consider that the verbal and nonverbal messages are in conflict. Maybe he don't mean what he says. Okay? And listening is therefore not just a matter of using your ears, but also your eyes. Okay. Now, what are the principles of good listening? So I have here 10 principles of good listening. So first, stop talking. Don't talk, just listen. Okay. Now, when somebody else is talking, listen to what he is saying. So do not interrupt, talk over him, or finish his sentences first. So when the person has finished talking, you may need to clarify to ensure you have received their message accurately. Okay? So stop talking when somebody is talking, just listen. Okay? And then next, prepare yourself to listen. Relax. Okay? So focus on the speaker. Put other things out of mind. The human mind is easily distracted by other thoughts. For example, what's for lunch? What time do I need to leave to catch my train or to catch my ride? Is it going to rain? So try to put these thoughts, or try to put other thoughts out of your mind and concentrate on the messages that are being communicated. And then third, put the speaker at ease. Okay? So help the speaker feel free to speak. Remember his needs and concerns as a speaker. Nod or use other gestures or words to encourage him to continue. So maintain eye contact, but don't stare. Show that you are listening and understand what is being said. And then another principle of good listening is remove distractions. Just focus on what is being said. And then next is empathize. So try to understand the other person's point of view. So look at issues from their perspective. Let go of preconceived ideas. So by having an open mind, and we can more fully empathize with the speaker. If the speaker says something that you disagree with, then wait and construct an argument to encounter what is said, but keep an open mind to the views and opinions of others. Okay? So empathize. And then next, be patient. A pause, even a long pause, does not necessarily mean that the speaker has finished. So be patient and let the speaker continue in their own time. Sometimes it takes time to formulate what to say and how to say it. So never interrupt or finish a sentence for someone. And then avoid personal prejudice. So try to be impartial. Don't become irritated, and don't let the person's habits or mannerisms distract you from what the speaker is really saying. So everybody has a different way of focus on what is being said, and try to ignore styles of delivery. Okay? So avoid personal prejudice. And then listen to tone. Now, both volume and tone add to what someone is saying. So a good speaker will use both volume and tone to their advantage to keep an audience attentive Everybody will use pitch, tone, and volume of voice in certain situations. So let this help you to understand the emphasis of what is being said. Okay, so listen to the tone and listen to ideas, not just words. You need to get the whole picture, not just isolated bits and pieces. Maybe one of the most difficult aspects of listening is the ability to link together pieces of information to reveal the ideas of others. So with proper concentration, letting go of distractions, and being focused, this becomes easier. Okay? And then we have to wait and watch for nonverbal communication. So gestures, facial expressions, and eye movements are nonverbal communication and can all be important. So we don't just listen with our ears, but also with our eyes. So watch and pick up the additional information being transmitted via nonverbal communication. So these are the 10 principles of good listening. Okay. Now, what are the purposes of listening? Why do we listen? Now, a listener's purpose varies or differs from situation to situation. So each one has its own set of requirements and skills that are needed to achieve the goals of the communication transaction, according to Ang 2009. Now, experts in the art of listening have identified the following purposes. Okay, first, to obtain and exchange basic information, thus gaining knowledge. Okay, so we listen because we want to obtain basic information in order to gain knowledge. For example, students listening inside the classroom to their teachers. Okay, so listening to gain knowledge. And then to make intellectual judgments and fair criticism, as well as evaluate ideas. So we listen because we want to make intellectual judgments and fair criticisms to others. Okay. And then we also listen to seek enjoyment, entertainment, and pleasure. So when we listen to music, when we listen to the news over the radio, anything that give us enjoyment, entertainment, and pleasure, okay, as we listen. And then another purpose of listening is to give logical and intellectual answers. So we listen because we want to give logical and intellectual answers, okay? Often, our main concern while listening is to formulate ways to respond. This is not actually a function of listening, but we should try to focus fully on what is being said and how it is being said in order to more fully understand the speaker. So these are the purposes of listening. Now, effective listening is the process of analyzing sounds, organizing them into recognizable patterns, interpreting the patterns and understanding the message by inferring the meaning. Now, many of the problems we experience with people in our daily lives are primarily attributable to ineffective listening or lack of listening. And because of that, we have the different steps of active listening process. So we have the following steps. Hearing, first we have hearing, and then filtering, comprehending. After comprehending, we remember, and as we remember, we respond. Okay? Now, let's have first the first step, which is hearing. Now, hearing is the first essential step in the listening process and relates to the sensory perception of sound. Now, the listener further process the perceived sound. So for learning to be effective, hearing needs to be done with attentiveness and concentration. Then after hearing, the next step involves sensing and filtering of heard sounds. Okay, so filtering of heard sounds. The heard message is categorized as wanted or unwanted sounds. Now, the unwanted message is, of course, discarded. The sense of judgment of the individual comes into play. That is, the filtering process is subjective, and a person chooses to retain what makes sense to him. So that is filtering. Then after that is comprehending. Now, the listener understands what the speaker has tried to convey. Now, this activity can be described as absorbing, grasping, or assimilating. Now, the listener uses his knowledge, experience, perception, and cognitive power. So another term for comprehending is understanding. Understanding of what is being heard and listened to. Now, the assimilated message is stored in memory to facilitate future recall, and that is remembering. And then after remembering is responding. Now, responding to a message takes place at the end of the communication. So immediately after or later to show that the message is being received and comprehended. So you can now respond. Okay. Listening is a combination of what we hear, what we understand, and what we remember in order for us to respond. Okay? So these are the different steps in the active listening process. Now, in conclusion, listening is both a rare skill and a delicate art. It can be learned and developed only through constant application and steady practice. So it will eventually perfected through mastery and refinement. So the technology of listening calls for a deep involvement with the speaker. So we must lend our ear with complete attention and thorough concentration. So we also need to shut out the presence of other persons to completely absorb information. We should entirely remove from irrelevant noises and sounds. And more importantly, we ought to listen logically and analytically. So while listening, we form pictures and images of what is being said, as well as associate them to certain events and experiences. So in doing this, we gain the full understanding of the message. Okay? So the universe talked to all of us. We just need to know how to listen. And one of the best ways to persuade others is with your ears, by listening to them, according to Dean Rask. So when you are listening to somebody completely and attentively, then you are listening not only to the words, but also to the feeling of what is being conveyed, to the whole of it, not part of it, according to Jaidu Krishnamurti. So listen 100 times, ponder 1,000 times, and speak once, according to Turkish proverb. So that concludes our discussion for this afternoon. Thank you for attending our virtual class. Keep safe, everyone, and God bless us all. Thank you.